All right, Rick, number 3 in our list, Bo Nix. We both thought Bo Nix was a day 2 guy. He ended up going 12th overall, the 6th quarterback to be drafted in the first round. That was historical. And the first throw, it looked like he rushed through his read and almost threw an interception in the middle of the field when he was late to Greg Dulcich, the tight end, who looked like he got banged up pretty good on that late throw to the safety. Met Greg at the ball. After that, he calmed down, and there may not be a more accurate passer on short and intermediate throws, speed outs. The touchdown pass to Marvin Mims was a laser, right on time, good footwork. My issue with Bo Nix's first performance, and this again can change over the course of a week of practice, I imagine, is that he was a little antsy in the pocket. He would step up in pockets that were clean and then find himself throwing off platform when he didn't need to. It affected his accuracy on some throws. On the throw, the laser to the left to Cortland Sutton for 20-plus yards, that was a great play. He was flush from the pocket. But in general, I would like to have seen him stand in the pocket, and he didn't necessarily have to take a hit because the pressure wasn't there, but just stand in the pocket and plant your feet and throw the football. So that's why I had him ranked 3rd, although I thought overall he did pretty good.
He was a little antsy in the pocket, but I liked his movement skills in the pocket. He seemed to feel the rush a little bit more than some of these other guys. I thought they took a very conservative approach with him. A lot of spacing routes, a lot of short to intermediate throws. I think I only charted 2 completions, a plus 15 down the field. The one you were talking about. I thought he was accurate underneath, both throwing to his left and his right, but it was not a lot of chunk plays. And in order to score points in the NFL, you're going to have to throw some chunk plays down the field. And that's the one thing that I didn't see him do. I don't, the one hit that you were talking about, the tight end going down the seam, that was a little late and it lit the tight end up. And those are some of the things that I saw in college. Not that he can't throw deep, but I think that he forces it into coverage or hesitates a little bit before it goes. But all the underneath stuff was fine. I just thought they went for a more conservative approach versus a lot of zone coverage defense, and wanted to make sure that I think that he performed well in his first preseason game. So I don't know how much game planning they did, but it seemed like they took the approach more than some of these other quarterbacks of not taking as many chunk throws down the field.
I will say this, and I just double-checked my notes. He did have – it was 2nd and 11 from the 22-yard line, and it was just a post safety, and he had Josh Reynolds out wide to his right, and he threw a perfect fade back in the end zone to Josh Reynolds and right between his hands. And that was one of the deep throws that he made that didn't show up in the stat sheet because Josh dropped it. But to your larger point, there were fewer of those throws than we saw from the other quarterbacks we talked about, and another one we'll talk about here in a second. But good start, B plus start. I mean, there are things to work on, not to be upset about.
Yeah, there's no one that we're going to talk about. Just say, geez, you're not going back the next morning and say, what the hell did we just do?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Bo Nix, week 1 starter for you?
I think he's ahead of Stidham just off of this week. Now it'll be interesting to see if they start Bo Nix this week and Stidham comes in later. But if you look, Zach Wilson had good stats. They all had good stats. They all were pretty conservative in the offense, making sure they got completions, I would say.
Okay. All right. Next up, let's do Michael Penix Jr., since Rick had him 4, and he took more snaps than the other 2 young men we'll talk about in a second. I had Michael Penix Jr. 5 just because I'm a huge Jay Daniels guy. But Michael Penix Jr., big arm. Here's the thing that stood out to me. He can throw without setting his feet. He's probably number 2 behind Caleb in terms of doing that for me, where he can just reset his upper body and just the ball comes out of his hands pretty quickly. It looks like a long windup, but he has a pretty quick release. The touch on the deep ball is what we saw at Washington. I was impressed with what he was able to do. The problem, of course, is he's not going to play this year if Kirk Cousins is healthy.
Yeah, all the things I agree with. Some of the times when he does not set his feet, that's when the ball sails on him some. I think his accuracy will fall off at times when he is not able to set his feet and trying to throw off his back foot. So I thought some of the inaccurate throws that you see are the guys he missed in stride were because of his mechanics inside the pocket with his feet. Seeing the deep ball arm talent that you saw coming out of college, needs to be a little bit more accurate with some of the like fades in the end zone and things like that. The one thing, if I had one big critical uh, evaluation on him, it's off of play action. He needs to speed up the process. He makes the ball fake, but then he's too nonchalant
Yep.
getting his head up the field and getting the ball out of his hands.
And that deep out was what you're talking about on that one?
Yeah, there were a couple of them. There was another one too where he, but the deep out was really, really evident where he gives the ball fake, but then he's just too casual, getting his head up and off the ball fake and getting the ball out of his hands. You don't have that time like you had in college. So he needs to speed up his processing, especially off of play action fakes.
Yeah, it was almost two different plays. The first half of the play was slow, and then once he realized where the receiver was in the route, he did speed it up, and he threw an absolute dime, and it hit him right in the hands. He just threw the receivers out of bounds. So to your point, that has to all match the drop in the route and all that other stuff. But he can make the throw. He saw the throw, and he has the arm strength to get the throw there. It's just a matter. And I think you're right about the footwork. I was thinking more about off-platform on these short throws when he has to reset quickly and get down to the check down, but sometimes his footwork seemed to let him down on the deeper throws. I know he missed one to the right on a speed out. I thought some of the routes the receivers ran, a lot of the guys were young receivers, didn't help him with some of those fades down the field. But again, I'm not going to pick nits here. I thought he did pretty well for an initial start. But again, there's no way he plays if Kirk's healthy, right?
Nope.
And that brings us back to the conversation we've been having for 110 days now. But all right, good job, Michael Penix Jr. I don't know what to tell you. Keep working hard. Your dreams will come true. All right, next up, my guy Jaden Daniels. As you noted, he didn't play a whole bunch. I'm okay with that. But the first throw, he looked pretty amped up on the screen to Austin Eckler. What did you think about the second throw when Cliff Kingsbury called a screen? And Jaden was asked about this after the game, and he checked out of it. Now, Dan Quinn, your buddy, said that I don't know if he should be checking out of things at this point. It felt like Top Gun buzzing the tower. You didn't ask for permission. You just did it, which I thought was a pretty funny thing to say. Checked out of the screen because he said there were too many people. The line of scrimmage was muddled, and he just threw that deep ball to De'Ami Brown, which you've seen him throw a million times last year to Malik and Brian Thomas Jr. That was fun. And then the other throw, of course, or the other play, of course, was the RPO keeper, where he outran everyone to the end zone on that 3-yard touchdown run, which we could also see a lot of. Didn't get touched there as well, which is also something you want to see from Jaden, staying healthy and upright.
Yeah, I think what he saw was that the corner was up in press coverage, and when he was talking about everybody up at the line of scrimmage, I think he recognized it was man. So when he audibled out of it, usually, which was a very mature decision, when a rookie can recognize that, hey, they're in press, let me just throw the ball down the field, and made a great throw on that deep ball. But I just didn't have enough to go off of to say he went through everything we just talked about on these other quarterbacks. You can see the speed and athleticism, even though it was a 3-yard run. So I'll actually be there tomorrow for the combined practices with the Miami Dolphins. So I'm anxious to watch him tomorrow in these controlled practices.
And we've talked about this before last summer, but you agree, or where are you on the contention that joint practices can sometimes be better than preseason games?
I am for joint practices wholeheartedly because
Okay.
it gives you another evaluation. You can get all your number ones, a lot of work in a controlled environment, as long as you're not knuckleheads and start fighting, which is absolutely insane to me. Good for the league for fining Detroit and New York $200,000 for trying to prove who's the biggest tough guy. It's not a tough guy competition. You're out there to get better and work against each other. I love Jared Mayo's quote. He says, if any starters fight in our combined practices, they'll play the whole preseason game. Any backups that fight during the practices will not see the field for a preseason game.
That is a great segue to Drake May, because our buddy Tom Fernelli, who's with the Cover 3 podcast, tweeted out Drake May should get in a fight so he doesn't have to play any more preseason games. Because things, I don't want to say they're dire in New England, but yesterday they had a joint practice with the Eagles, and these were some of the reports coming out of that practice. This is from Chad Graff of The Athletic. He said Drake May would have been sacked five times on his final 6 dropbacks and 6 times in his final 9 dropbacks against the Eagles. Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald tweeted out The Patriots quarterbacks got sacked on 10 of 48 dropbacks in team periods today. That's 21% of the time. And the big issue is the offensive line, which we've talked about for 2 years. They drafted a bunch of guards 2 drafts ago. They tried to get better with Caden Wallace, and they signed Chuck's Okorafor this time around. They have real issues. And we talked to why Caden Wallace would be the left tackle when he played right tackle at Penn State. They're trying to make him to the left tackle now. We'll talk about all that stuff in the coming weeks and months, I'm sure. Drake May only got, I think he was 2 of 3 for 19 yards. Not a lot to go on. He looked fine. The other thing I'll ask you is this. Do you think there's any concern about doing to Drake May what happened to Mac Jones? Because Mac Jones played a lot as a rookie, and he did okay, but then things went sideways for him. Are they just bringing him along slowly because he's 21 years old and there's no reason to subject him to what could potentially be a terrible outcome with the way the offensive line's playing?
I think they had a game plan going in because they signed Jacoby Brissett right off the bat in free agency and probably told him, you're our starter. We're going to draft a young quarterback, but you're going to be the bridge starter. And maybe something similar to what Minnesota is doing with Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy. But you sure in the heck don't want to put this kid out there and not have a chance if their offensive line is as porous as is being reported.
So no offensive line, no wide receivers to speak of in terms of veterans, at least. They have Kendrick Bourne, who's hurt. They drafted Javon Baker on day 3. He's been flashing at training camp. Jalen Polk, we've talked about, the second-round pick when they passed on Ladd McConkey. I'm assuming, I didn't see the report, but I would guess that's why Brandon Ayuk didn't want to go to New England, because the quarterback situation, the offensive line situation, lack of offense situation. But yeah, Drake May was fine. He 2 of 19. He did 2 of 3 for 19 yards. Still did what he was asked to do. No real comment on what that means for him as a rookie.
He was very good with the 2 screens he completed.
Yeah, and I think the other throw was
amazing how you can rank guys off of 2 screen passes.
Well, he had to throw in the middle of the field that was incomplete, which wasn't his fault. It was to Debo's Jalen Reagor, who had the ball hit him in the hands and then dropped it. That was actually a pretty good throw. All right, so that's our rankings of the first-round rookie quarterbacks.